I love that we're talking about this topic of sort of this idea of the masculine and feminine energy, because it's something that has come up with my clients so much. And as you know, I always am taking my clients through some big transitions in their lives. And one big transition is this idea of relating in midlife, relating to your existing partner, relating to a new partner, or even just being out in the dating world. And, in my experience as a coach, being a dating coach, um, I have a lot of my clients who come in who maybe haven't dated for years. In fact, one client was celibate for 7 years, so hadn't even been with anybody and even had the energy around. And in that same time frame, each of these females specifically have had grown to the pinnacle of their careers. Some of the most successful, energized, driven, determined, both career success and in many cases financial success. So they got to this place, and they're now in this place where finding a suitable partner can be very challenging because they have, I'll call it, this accomplishment and success-driven energy that doesn't resonate with a man who is not accustomed to working with that energy. And so there seems to always be a mismatch when I talk to these clients, because they meet these men, and on the one hand, they want to be taken care of, and they have these old social norms of being taken care of and having life be easier for them with a man. And yet they have this energy that shows that they don't need taken care of, that they have everything they need. But somewhere in there, they still feel that there's a need that needs to be met by a man who could, quote unquote, take care of them. So it's so fascinating because a lot of times with my clients, I have to sort of peel the layers of the onion to say, like, what really do you need? What is it that you really want here? And can you convey an energy that shows that, and not just that old social norm that says you have to be taken care of and you have to slip back into this old role? So I'm curious to hear what your experience has been, because there are so many women nowadays that have this energy. It's definitely more airs on the side of a masculine fixed energy versus sort of the feminine flow energy. And so that fixed mentality makes it really difficult for my clients to see beyond what their current more masculine energy is. And it ends up being, again, like crossed wires or missed connections, because they're not showing this true part of them that wants to be in relation.
Right. I would say, wow, we see this so often, right? The rabbit hole I kind of take my clients down is first like foundational. So understanding that every single human on the planet has both masculine and feminine energy, right? And that as women, especially in our society, we must master our masculinity to, evolve within education, within career, to keep a roof over our heads, to take care of family members, to take care of ourselves. We have to honor that we have that energy and that we're utilizing it. It's powerful, it's necessary. But I remind my clients that you're not a one-trick pony. There's not just one aspect to who you are. That is not the case. If that is the case, we have work to do. Okay. So understanding that you must also honor your femininity, because a lot of our clients are coming in with, listen, this is just how I am, and this is it, and everyone around me has to just deal with this. And it's like, nope, that's not true. This is one aspect of you that you have hyper focused on for many, many, many years, and you have other underdeveloped aspects of you that need to be nurtured, and your femininity is one of those. And you are not functioning at your full mass or at your full power unless you have also developed your femininity. You are leaving power on the table, period. Okay. And so understanding that in order to be healthy and balanced as a woman in our society today, you need at least one area of your life where you can be a woman in her feminine goddess energy. And that aspect is romance. Okay. And we need that. And for the women who are looking for, I want a man to see me as he wants to pursue me because of who I am, not what I can do, is very important. If you want a man to see you for who you are and pursue you for who you are and want to be with you because of who you are as a human being, not because of how highly capable you are and not because of how organized and how, whatever, if that's what you want, that's what you must focus on as well. So for women who are coming into the dating space and spending 45 minutes talking about their job on a date and are wondering why this guy's looking at her like, oh, this is provider to provider. We're having a conversation here. So if I get with you, you're going to make my life easier because this is what you're telling me you love this position. That's great. I love it too, because you're going to do a lot for me. It's going to make my life easier. But women are looking for this man who's going to come out and say, I want to make your life easier. Let me remove some stress and burden from you. That's what these women are wanting, but their energy is telling a completely different story. And so what I'm challenging my clients on is, listen, you're not a one-trick pony. You have this whole other powerful aspect of yourself that needs to be developed. And that's the aspect of you that needs to be forefront on your dates, especially dates 1 through 3, when you are solidifying your connection. This is the time where you're setting the standards, you're showing that person who you are. Okay, so it needs to be about your energy. The man will pursue you for your positive attitude, your creativity, your ability to be playful. Okay, your charm, your wit, who you are, how you are in relationship, your empathy, your compassion, all of that. It's your essence that they don't get anywhere else. This is the place that they get it from you. And that is invaluable to a man who is healthy mentally and emotionally. Invaluable. Okay, so we must shift our focus from, yes, this is my impressive resume. This is all the things that that makes me powerful, all the things that I've done. I'm like Superwoman, right? It's shifting from that, like I am a woman, and I need to rest and I want to be supported and I want to be loved and nurtured. Because real men nurture, by the way, okay, very important to understand that. Healthy men nurture. That's why they make great husbands and great fathers, okay? So it's a shift from talking about work for 40 minutes to talking about your interest, your hobbies, your passions, talking about your travel stories, talking about your relationships with your family, your friends, focusing on, who you are, right? And so understanding that we activate men as women, we activate men by our energy. And so when we're coming in with provider energy, we activate what I call predator mode. And that's not abuse from men. That's now I'm looking at you. What can I take from you? Okay. Now, when we're coming in with an elevated nurturing energy where we're making his life way too easy, we're over giving time, energy, resources, whatever, then that activates the man into energy conservation mode. Okay, he powers down, he gets complacent, he gets lazy. It's like him going to his mom's house. Oh, I can kick back, take my shoes off. Mom's going to cook my favorite meal. She's going to ask me how my day was. I don't have to do crap here. All I have to do is exist, and I'm going to get everything I want. We don't want that. We have to understand being a woman is a full range of energy. You have light femininity, intuition, your empathy, all of that. You have dark femininity, your seductive nature, your charm, your ability to be a bit mysterious. We have savage feminine energy. It's the F around and find out energy. It's don't you cross this boundary, there are going to be consequences, right? And healthy men love that full range.
And it's so difficult for our clients, especially when they're busy professionals, to really shift out of what they're doing at work, or not only work, but if they're single moms, things like that, where they're always in charge and they, then they come to us or they come to a matchmaker and they have this long list of desires. This is what I want. Like they're still in their masculine energy. So what I always like to tell my clients is take a step back and start developing that relationship with yourself so you can realize who you are underneath all of this. Because a lot of times when we bring those expectations into relationships, they're really part of unhealed wounds that we have. And so then we're laying these expectations on a partner to heal parts of ourselves that we need to be doing, right? So it's really peeling back a lot in order to be ready for this process or to invite, an aligned partner in. There's just so much work to be done. So I think what we do in coaching is just so invaluable for our clients.
And
100%.
I think it's so interesting. We talk about peeling back the layer. You're so right. Again, part of being in this fixed energy is that you can't see anything else, right? It's like you just heads down. You're productive because you know you need to provide. And so they also burn out when we get to these places where they get into, none of this is possible. I'm never, and that starts going into limiting beliefs, which we talked about last week, which they just sort of all feed into each other. And what that translates into is an energy that that they bring in meeting new people, or the energy they bring to the existing partner, that doesn't allow for room for both partners to grow, because it's so fixed. It's so set in stone that any deviation from it usually ends up in either anger, resentment, fights, and then going back to yourself, shame on self, right? So like, oh, here I am, I did it again. I scared somebody off because I'm too fixed. And it becomes sort of this vicious cycle. So when my clients come to me like this, and I sort of shine the spotlight on this aspect of them, there's this huge aha moment that sometimes they get it right then and there, but sometimes they don't. But then when they get to that point, it's almost like the whole body relaxes. And isn't it so much better from a somatic perspective to meet people when your body is relaxed and not, ready to show them your entire resume on a first meeting? There are some tools that people use in work. So there's a lot of folks who are in business development and sales. So when you're negotiating a deal with a brand new client, do you tell them all these things? No, you're in sort of a flow when you're a good negotiator, right? So there are aspects of the female, the accomplished, driven, successful female, to take aspects of what worked for them at work in a relational capacity that also can work in their personal and long-term and intimate relationships. But the stakes are so high, right? And so it's like, well, those are my deal breakers. If he tells me he smokes, or he tells me he has kids, that's a deal breaker. I can't even go there. And so once again, they get back into that fixed mindset. Whereas if you're thinking about it as an investment, like you would with any business deal or any business negotiation, you're still open, and you're navigating a relationship with the intent to keep that relationship, with the intent to resolve that relationship, with the intent to be curious about a brand new relationship. So we don't have to cast all of that aside, but we do have to find what part of it is still genuine to you, and that can actually let that softness come through.
I think you bring up such an interesting point about kind of bringing some of these business tactics into their relationship or their love life, because I think what happens is they feel confident in that area of their life. So they think, let's mimic some of these skills in my dating life, but it doesn't work. But what is the underlying
Right.
factor that makes you successful at your job? It's not that you can, eventually the outcome, yes, you have these things to accomplish, but underneath it all, it's your self-assurance. It's your confidence in who you are in that role.
Yes.
So now when you go into dating, it's again going back to peeling back those layers to see who you are and feel who you are, right? Because it's a different role. It's not a business deal anymore. It's a partner.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is practicing, like we get to where we are in a business, setting because we have all of that experience, like all of that schooling and education, and, we've done, trainings, or we've done, internships. And so all of that is practice. Like confidence doesn't just come from nowhere. It comes from doing it over and over and over and knowing that like, oh, I'm getting better, seeing little successes along the way. And so a lot of times dating is the same thing, you know, you don't just go into dating without practicing and you're confident and you're like, you know, but that's where I think that fixed energy comes in, is because we don't often practice dating as much as we, you know, need to in order to have the partnership that we want. And then so because of that kind of lack of confidence, that's where the fixed energy comes in. You know, I always tend to think that for me personally, I become more fixed when I feel less certain and I'm feeling less confident. I need to be more fixed.
Control.
I need to
Mhm.
have more knowns. I need
Yeah.
more certainty in order to feel safe, right? And
Mhm.
that's a big thing with feminine energy, is feeling safe, sexy, and special. That is like our, you know, whereas with masculine energy, it's about feeling appreciated, needed, and respected. And to your guys's point, you know, needing somebody, you know, Barb was talking about this before, right? Wanting to be taken care of, you know, it's really hard because, you know, the successful, high achieving women that we coach, we don't need anything. They don't need it. You know what I mean? If they want to, you know, they can hire people to do things for them, you know, and so it really is, you know, how can I make this other person feel needed, even though I really don't, I can take care of myself. Asking my clients when I worked with them on this, like, you know, I know you don't need anybody. You don't need anybody to take care of you. But since masculine energy likes to feel needed, in what ways can we give that to that person? You know, in what ways can we gift that to our partner, whoever we're dating, you know, and allow him to feel that way, because that's how they're wired, you know, that's what they like. So, and this isn't in relation to gender or anything like that, you know, like you guys said, we have both masculine and feminine energy inside of us. This is more like general, but everybody is different, you know. Maybe some of the females that we coach are more masculine energy, and that's totally fine. So then it's, you know, how can we look for more, you know, feminine energy, flow energy guy then? So
The one word that keeps coming up that I'm hearing from all of you is this idea of control, right? And once again, in the work setting, a lot of these successful executives, they have control over everything, right? Comes from however many years that they've been at that profession, what have you. So relationships, dating, it's not always in our control, right? And so, you know, we also probably use different parts of our brain for one versus the other. So in a work setting, we're probably using more of the rational centers of our brain. And so the emotions don't go in, but on love, relationships, all those things, it's coming from the emotional centers of our brain. And so we have to contend with that, and contend with the fact that going on a date with somebody the first time, you don't have any control over it. And yet, can you present yourself with the same confidence as if you like the kind of confidence you have when you're leading a meeting at work, when you are, you know, saying something inspiring to your staff, whatever that is. And I think it's very difficult for these people to move out of that role and like just sit in whoever they are, right? So because it's really scary, like that whole control thing. Rejection can be a very, very hard thing for somebody who gets everything that they want, you know, in their
Sure.
business world. You know,
yeah,
some women decide, you know what, I'm just going to focus on work because I know that's where I feel good.
yeah,
Every time I try this
Mhm.
dating thing, it feels terrible. So again,
Mhm.
like we're working off of so many different parts of the brain that aren't used to it, that, you know, get into a state of dysregulation when dealing with something that's out of their control.
Yeah,
to
I always say it's like a different ballgame. It's like comparing apples and oranges when you're talking about work, like work Loretta versus, well, maybe not, maybe not us, because we kind of toggle a little bit with coaching,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
like the corporate, work like persona versus like the dating, wanting a masculine energy partner persona is very, very different. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious for you guys. I mean, I'll tell you how I define it, but like if you could define feminine energy in just like a sentence, maybe not define, but explain it or describe feminine energy in just like one sentence, how would you guys describe it? I'll tell you how and you can tell me what you think about that. For me, it's like when I think of flow / feminine energy, I think of like the willingness to be in the unknown, the willingness to be in uncertainty, not having to know everything, not having to like, have things figured out. Um, and then, leading with our feelings
Yeah.
versus our logic, like leading with our feelings and just like being in this very open space of like, I don't know, and it's okay that I don't know.
Mhm.
I trust myself, and that's okay.
Yeah, I definitely
Mhm.
think it's getting out of our head and into our heart and just feeling and allowing,
Yes.
no, like having faith, right? And knowing that everything is unfolding as it needs to be, kind of like what you were talking about earlier about just like enjoying the dating process. I think the rejection, the expectations, all of that prevent people from enjoying that process, but just knowing it's going to teach us something about ourselves. It's going to help us evolve to be who we need to be in this space, right? To attract the right partner for ourselves. But yeah, I think when we're in that fixed, we don't allow those things to unfold naturally because we're trying to control the entire outcome.
Just to add on to that, the thing that comes to mind for me is the word freedom. So freedom from constraints, freedom from social norms, freedom from the emotional baggage that we have. And then to some degree, sort of a free spirit. So it's like if you have, in your brain, if you could think about how your brain is wired. So one side of the brain has like the suit and the briefcase. The other side is like in tie-dye and just sort of spinning around, having a great time. So I really do think it's like this freedom from all the things that we grew up that constrained us from being our true selves.
Yes.
That's what I
Mhm.
think of flow energy as.
Think of it as kind of along the lines that Barb said. I call it divine chaos. And so I think of feminine energy as divine chaos, which is why we're given the power to create, because everything in the world is created through divine chaos. That's how planets are created. That's how life is forming. There are so many. It's such a incomprehensible depth to all the aspects that are going on in order to create life. And we house that ancient wisdom within us. It's innate, And so we are a God, divine chaos agent that creates life. And which is why we benefit from the structure of masculinity. Okay.
Mhm.
And why masculinity is nothing without the divine chaos factor of creation and life, right? That's why we work so well together when we're healthy. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think of as the feminine essence as intuitive, because the intuition is the most powerful form of intellect that we have access to. It's the most powerful form of intellect because we are picking up on what is seen and unseen, what is heard and unheard. We're picking up on the energetic frequency of all things. That's what our intuition is reading and then interpreting and then guiding us. Okay, so that's the most powerful form of intellect that we have access to.
Yeah.
And lastly, it's being open to receive. So when I think of feminine energy and feminine power, I think of a goddess figure with her arms wide, hands open, arms spread out wide, because she's in the state of receptivity, of receiving, right? And in her power of being able to receive, she is giving just by her essence being felt, and just by people being able to perceive her and learn from her, right? Because we are a reminder to everyone that not only giving is important, but receiving is equally important, right?
Yeah,
And this is the balance.
I really love this so
Yeah.
much. Sorry, you said divine chaos, right?
Yes, divine
Yeah.
chaos. Yep, the divine chaos agent.
Yeah, this is everything that, we're describing. I'm picturing and envisioning someone, something that's really strong, actually really strong.
Very.
But what's interesting is that I know I've had clients, and I don't know about you guys, a lot of my clients relate to femininity and flow energy as weakness.
As weakness. Yep.
Actually, as a damsel in distress. And I always
Exactly.
say someone who's strong in their femininity is very, very powerful. And I've heard it described in this way. I've heard it described in feminine energy, like being the sea, which of course we know is very strong, right? But
Mhm.
masculine energy as the pillars that kind of guide and lead and direct, but the feminine energy is a very powerful force. There's, like we talked about, of course, there's wounded feminine energy.
Yes.
There's the,
Absolutely.
healthy feminine energy as well.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious, just kind of thought about this. What do you guys like? Let's compare and contrast feminine energy on a first date.
Mm.
Would that be like, right? What would she be feeling, embodying? How would she act? How would she present? Versus a fixed energy, masculine energy, coming into the date, same girl, right? Same woman,
Yeah.
coming into the date with more fixed masculine energy. What are the differences? How would it show up? Like kind of just
So
looking.
from a practical perspective, like I would think that somebody who comes in with a feminine energy did a few steps before to even get them there, because the assumption is that they're accomplished, successful people. So potentially they went to a yoga class sometime during the day before showing up for the date. So to sort of embody a little bit of setting in yoga, we say we put it all out on the mat. So embodying that the somatic part of showing up to a date. I also see that person is coming in, maybe even offering a hug instead of a handshake to the person that she meets on a first date. So like an open interview. And then from a physical perspective, I feel like they have lots of color on, and maybe like, a nice flowing dress that makes them feel comfortable, not because it's so showy, but an outfit that makes them feel really comfortable. And that, they have an attitude of openness and curiosity that where not just the person she's meeting, but everyone in the room like feels that energy. It's not just directed at anyone in particular. So it comes from inside and it radiates out to everyone she crosses. When I think of a fixed energy person, that person has the day completely scheduled out. They may have had a workout in there, but it was scheduled out. And they were there exactly 10 minutes early and sit down and start typing on their phones and getting some work done before the person shows up. They're still potentially in their work clothes, but just maybe threw a little bit of makeup on, and they're right to business. And the topics are very more contrived and more planned. And within about 40 minutes in, they're like, oh, you know what? I have to, like, whether or not they want to stay, they start talking about all the different things they want to do, or they have to do, and start to excuse themselves because they are doing everything to try to control the situation in a perfectly managed schedule for the entire day. So that is my visual picture. And then from a somatic perspective, there has been no release of any kind prior to arriving at this place of meeting somebody new. And so they're very upright, very much a contracted position from the top of the head all the way down to the toes. And that body language, that energy shows that, oh, don't mess with her. This person may have also said, hey, I wanted to be by this table when they showed up with the host. And it potentially has to move it to a perfect spot where, again, that fixed energy person maintains control from point A of the date to the end of the date.
I think you nailed it there, Barb.
Incredible, Barb. Yes.
I would add to that, thinking about the outcome of the date. I think the fixed energy has an expectation, has an agenda. They're checking off boxes as the date goes along. He
Yes.
meets this, he doesn't meet that,
Yeah.
and the feminine, and then the outcome is like disappointment if it doesn't work out and all the boxes aren't checked off, and this was a waste of my time. And the feminine energy is seeing if there's a connection, feeling into the date, like really listening and getting curious with their partner, their match or whatever it is, date, and learning about themselves and learning what feels good to them or maybe what doesn't feel good to them in this situation, and recognizing when they leave this date, they're gonna walk away with something, whether it's a new lesson or something, or maybe it's some other type of connection with this person. It may not be romantic, but it's something to add to their journey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I wanted to point out for that
Amazing.
one, Holly, because it's not the thing about the feminine energy too, is that what you said, it's like maybe they've learned something that they didn't like. So there's still some amount of discomfort in the feminine energy version, but they're okay to lean into that discomfort and see it as a learning opportunity as opposed to a rejection or something that starts to chip at the sense of self. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, I recognize those things. I recognize that I felt a little uncomfortable with this person. What do I do with that? Right. So having the ability to even be vulnerable about the post-date experience, I think is really important in the feminine energy piece.
I love
Ariel,
it.
I'm curious if there's any thoughts that you have on the same topic.
Oh, yeah, I think I will add to that communication, like communication style, right? And so I speak to a lot of my clients about when you're communicating from a place of feminine power, you are speaking to the feelings. So when you are talking about, for instance, like, let's say it gets brought up kind of like, what are you looking for in a partner? You're trying to see if you're in alignment and whatnot, not giving this hyper masculine like checklist of like, these are the things. And if it's anything outside of this, that is not going to work, that sort of thing. But speaking to how a certain characteristic that you hope your partner would have actually makes you feel. So it's like, if I want a man who is like a natural provider, leader type of guy, right? He's an initiator or something like that. I'm going to say men who tend to initiate, who are rather decisive, that type of man makes me feel safe. It makes me feel secure as a woman, the type of man who will reach out to me on a regular basis just to let me know he's thinking of me. He prioritizes our time together. He makes sure that our dates are special. He plans our dates and makes sure that they are special. That makes me feel desired as a woman. It makes me feel special. And I love that. And I find that type of man, it's easy for me to respect and appreciate him, to show appreciation towards him. I feel like I'm able to show up as my best self to that type of connection. I'm being activated in a positive way. Therefore, I'm very giving, because I'm getting my needs met as well. Right. And so we're not really taught to have it, because the communicating from your feminine power we have to pair our strength and clarity with vulnerability. It has to be balanced.
Mhm.
And that's the key. Also, communicating from your feminine power means being able to clearly state your desires, but not coming in with also the solution. The guy wants to be the hero. He wants to be the one where you state, if a guy's texting you and you're like, oh, I can't stand this constant texting. I'm more of a phone call person. Like, this is annoying. Then, your job as, communicating from your feminine power is, I'd really love to hear your voice. You're stating a desire, and then he's like, oh, great, I'll call you in 10 minutes, or great, let's make time to talk later this evening. Let it be his idea. As the woman, you are to state your desires. You are to be verbal, and you are to verbalize your desires, your wants, and your needs. So he's not doing any guesswork. And then it's his job to come in and fill in the gap and say, oh, okay, let me do this. Let me help you with this. Let me, and I think that's a game changer for women. If you can really get this feminine, powerful communication style down, whoo, that activates men in a way that will just nothing but benefit you if you can really take hold of that. So, yeah.
And I always say to communicate from a place of feeling like, hey, I really miss you. I wish I could see you.
Aw.
I'm like really sad, it makes me really sad when I don't like hear from you for a long time. I like really miss you. They'll like come in, they'll like pop into action, like, oh my God.
Immediately.
What can I do? Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
So as much as we can like lean into our feeling space, how is this making me feel? Oh, I feel kind of sad. I feel kind of neglected, or like I feel lonely, or I feel and I tell women too, like going into a date, because we talk a lot about going into a date. Obviously we're trying to like get to know this other person, right? But there's a big difference between getting to know this other person from a place of openness and curiosity, like we, talking about, versus like getting to know this person to see whether or not he answers all of my questions correctly. Like there's right and wrong. And if it's a wrong answer, it's like,
You're out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, versus like curious, like, and then asking follow-up questions too, like, because sometimes we hear something, like they say something and it maybe rubs us the wrong way, and then all of our kind of limiting beliefs come in, all of our assumptions, right, come into play, versus, and it could be not even what he meant, right?
Exactly.
And so a lot of it is like asking, like, oh, what do you mean by that? Like, give me an example. Like, so are you saying that this, and this? Well, then what about this? Like asking, being okay, instead of just cut, now you're, cutting it off, like right there. Oftentimes we have a tendency to just write them off because we hear something that we don't like. And it could be totally something that's not even correct, and not really digging in a little bit deeper, and already writing them, and already but it could have been like, at least someone for you to go out with again, except now we have this like mental block. So a lot of it, our curious hearts want want to just lead with curiosity and be open.
I love that. You hit the nail on the head, Loretta. Yeah, because that's one of the biggest things that I say in my sessions. Get curious, not defensive. Get curious, not defensive. Anytime you're triggered by something, or you have a reaction, physical, emotional reaction to something, start asking questions,
And get curious with yourself too, because in that case, that person could have been projecting past experience onto this one thing this person said, right?
Absolutely.
And he has no chance because you've just taken this other experience and moved it over here into this present moment, and that's it.
Yeah. oftentimes it can sound like, oh, that's what my ex used to
Yep.
say.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
And you're doomed.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get in that situation again. And, like, all these
Exactly.
assumptions, just going down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Triggers, right?
Spiraling.
It just triggers all those,
absolutely.
triggers
Versus
all those
masculine.
old wounds. Yep. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And you know, with triggers and stuff, it's always about what is it in me that this is like triggering? Like, why
Mhm.
is it that when he said this thing, why did I feel so uncomfortable? Like, is it really him? Or is it something, you know, like Holly said, like the
Me.
old wound, something within
Mhm.
me that
Yep.
isn't totally healed yet? And like, who can I talk to about that? Who can
Mhm.
I get some objectivity around this? Because I want to kind of dive in deep, and I'm not going to make any decisions about him just yet. You know, let me find out first what it is within me that triggered. And then, you know, I just don't even, we've only been on 1 or 2 dates. I don't have enough information yet. There's no way, right? Like,
Yep.
Exactly.
I always say, like, how long did it take you? Like, think of a really good friend that you have in your life. Like, how long did it take you, and how much did it take? Like, how many interactions, how much of you guys showing up for each other, how much of you guys talking about different things, how, you know, for you to know, like, hey, this is like a really good friend of mine now. And like, how are you going to know on just 1 or 2 meetings whether or not this is your person? There's like no
Mhm.
way. It's
Mhm.
impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
S-
so interesting that the word curious and the words openness remind me of the definition of mindfulness. So the UCLA Mindfulness Awareness Research Institute states that mindfulness or mindful awareness is the ability to you know, be in the present with curiosity, openness, and the willingness to be with what is. And if somebody could present themselves with those three things as they're coming into a date, then it forces you to be mindful of exactly what you're doing in that moment, as opposed to fast forwarding to he checks all the boxes and now we're going to get married and have a dog and 2 kids and live behind the picket fence. Or, oh my God, he just told me that thing that my ex used to do. So when we stay in the present of the actual date using mindfulness, then that keeps us in the place of openness. It keeps us in the place of curiosity. It keeps us in the place of being with what is right in front of you. So that way, at minimum, you can get the data to decide post-date whether or not this relationship or this new person you're meeting is somebody that you want to get to know better. And it
Yes.
only has to stop there, right? You don't have to go all the way through to how many kids you're having and retiring together in the retirement community. And our brains are planning brains and we're striving for the next thing. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
mindfulness is a really big thing when you go and you have the first date, and then even to the second and third date. And then you'll get a better understanding of what it's like to be with this person. Just like
Yeah.
what Loretta was saying, like, how long does it take to cultivate a good friendship? Years.
And we would hope you would want to be friends with your partner, right? Like,
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
friends with your
Exactly.
partner. And so if you can't even get to that friendship level, how are you going to know whether this is someone that it's going to be your life partner? Like, life
Yeah.
partner, whoa. Like, in just
It's
2 days,
huge.
not. Like, that's not even logical, right? But something Barb said earlier was interesting to me, because we have a tendency, our brains have a tendency, like, you know, that smoking example that, he can't smoke, he can't, all these, like that smoking example, you know, we have, our brains have a tendency to think that is going to be forever. I mean, I will say, when my husband and I first started dating, I smoked. I would smoke cigarettes. And I even told him after, you know, one of our first dates, like, you know, I sometimes smoke a cigarette, like, you know, whatever. And, you know, if he wrote me off right there, we wouldn't be together. But I don't smoke anymore. I haven't smoked in years. But, you know, things change over time, like the influence and effect of another new person in your life, that can change so much about a person. I mean, not that we want to force somebody to
Exactly.
change.
Right.
Naturally, organically, that flow that we're talking about again, that feminine flow state, you know, things change organically by just a new person being in someone's life. So, you know, just because they smoke, or just because they don't love hiking as much as you do, or, you know, it doesn't matter, because as long as you're both open-minded, you can teach each other new things. You can introduce new things to each other's lives. And, you know, that can be an adventure all on itself, but we have to be open. That's like
Yeah.
the point, I think.
I love that point. I love it because you're right. Because I think we need to, when you're in relation, that fixed energy goes against this ability to support each other through those changes, through the evolution of self, right? Like when I got married at age 27, I was a very different person when I got to the year 20 marriage. I mean, very different, but it took me a while to realize it, right? And I think as people are moving in and out of relationships, especially in these middle age or middle essence timeframes, we have to really think, oh my gosh, you know, is this who I want to be in whatever this new relationship is? And if we stay fixed saying, well, things work a certain way, and you know, this is the only formula I know, then we limit ourselves to experiences that could be amazing, right? Because looking outside of the box of who we are in this fixed compartmentalized world is how we grow. And I hope to continue to grow for the rest of my life as long as I'm lucid.
For
And if
sure.
we're not able to do that, then we're going to, you know, it can be very limiting when meeting somebody new, when you're forced to make a shift, right? When if a partner dies or if a marriage breaks, whatever those things, and there's some limitations that come with holding on to that fixed energy.
Yeah, I've heard that we get a new body every 7 years.
Exactly.
So,
Definitely.
Cell regeneration. Cell regeneration. Yes.
so how can we possibly think that we're the same person?
Either in movies or when you think about something dramatic, somebody yells at the other person, "You changed," and shouldn't, in some cases, maybe
That's the
that should be
point.
heralded, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
It's like, you've changed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I support you on this change, as opposed to, you were supposed to be the same exact person I met 25 years ago. You're like, okay, then that means you want somebody who's unevolved. I mean, I'm taking that to an extreme, right?
Exactly.
So, but that traditional "you've changed" speaks to something very different, and not to, and it also highlights how folks who are unwilling to support change or change themselves will again stay in the fixed box and potentially will limit their own evolution. And I think that, you know, all of us have experienced that at some point, and then but those of us who respond and actually make the adjustment, generally growth happens after.